Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Girl with the Rose Tattoos. My name's Becca and I am super excited because I'm going to be sharing with you my May book reads, and we are just going to jump right into this. So, first book, The Book of Cold Cases. Flippin' love this book. This author, every single book I've read by her last month, I loved her books. So in this book, there's this woman who is a receptionist by day, and at night she writes. She does like a blog site of cold cases, and she's fascinated by, you know, all these murders due to her past of something that happened in her past where she was almost killed. And she ends up meeting this lady who was very famous in her town for getting away with murder, they believe. And she ends up meeting up with this lady and this lady goes and tells her whole story. And she tells her the whole story, and the girl, what's her name, Shaya, writes a book about what's her name, Beth Greer's life and the murders, and that she wasn't responsible for it. So this book goes back between the current time, 2017, and 1977, when the murders occurred, and it goes back and forth, and it's very easy to keep up with. This book is a page turner. At the end of every chapter it leaves you with a cliffhanger and you just want to keep reading. Love the ending, even though there's like some spiritual like ghost stuff in it. Even though this is like the first book I've read that has like that type of stuff in it, I loved this book, and this author is amazing. So highly recommend this book, 10 out of 10 for sure. Next book I read was Like a Sister. This is one of the books that you could choose for book of the month, I think last month, or was it the month before, I don't know, but I thought this book was okay. Maybe a 3 out of 10. I'm not gonna read it again. So this woman, so Desiree is found dead at a park in a part of a town that she would never go to. She is an influencer on Instagram, and her sister Lena decided that her sister's her sister's death was not an overdose, that someone had to have murdered her. And this whole book is just about Lena trying to find her sister's killer, and the book is like really slow to me, and just I had a hard time keeping up with who was who because there were so many different characters in this book and they weren't clearly presented, some of them, so I had a hard time like differentiating some of the characters, and I was like, who's that again? I've never had issues with that in a book before. I found it slow. It left a lot of questions at the end of the book more than answers, and I was more confused when I finished it than like when I started it, and it was just not one of my favorite reads. I did not like the main character whatsoever. I did not like her perspective like on life, and she was just, you know, I just wasn't a fan of this book. And I'm probably gonna, all the books I don't like, I just put them in one of those like little libraries that they have, and so this is one that I am not keeping and will not be rereading. Next book, this is the sequel this is for Aunties and a Wedding. So I talked about the first book. So what it is just these aunties, and then the main character right here, Medi, and they're from like an Asian culture, and it's Medi's wedding, and it's just a whole disaster because her family is freaking hilarious. I laughed out loud so many times reading this book. The ending was kind of a little disappointing. I thought I would be a little better, but it was still good. Just the trouble that her aunts get in is hilarious in this book. And they go to like New England, I believe, for Medi's wedding, and the aunts are trying to learn the culture, and it's not correct, but it's hilarious. And like always, recommend this book. Freaking hilarious. Laughed out loud so many times. I liked the first one, I think, a little bit better, but this one was amazing. 10 out of 10 for sure. Next one, One Italian Summer. So this is not like a typical book that I would read. So this woman, Katie's mother just dies, and Katie's very, very close to her mom, and she feels lost without her mom. Her and her mom were supposed to go to Italy, right, you know, around the time she dies, and Katie wasn't going to go on the trip, but then she decides to go on the trip by herself and try and find herself and like who she is. And when she's on this trip, she sees her mother in her 30s there, and she doesn't know how her mother showed up. You'll realize at the book like what happened for her to see her mother, but she learns some like secrets that her mom never told her, and she finds herself on this trip. There's like a romance in it, and I actually really enjoyed this book. And like I loved the author was so good at describing the scenery of Italy. I want to go to Italy now. So I really enjoyed this book, and I just, you know, it was a shorter book, but amazing. Highly recommend to read this. Probably give this an 8 out of 10 for sure. Next up was a book called True Biz, and this is about deaf culture. So it pretty much, you get the perspective of like these 3 teenagers that go to this deaf school and the principal, the headmistress of the school. So the school is being shut down, and the headmistress is upset about it, and the kids end up finding out about it, and these kids end up running away. And it just, this book helps. I found it so interesting because it really dives into deaf culture. It even gives you some history on deaf culture, and I found it very interesting, you know, learning about deaf culture, and kind of knowing about like what the people that are deaf, what they go through, and like how society isn't completely set up for them to succeed, which is sad, and just about what they go through. And it's a really good read. It's informative at the same time, and I loved all the characters in this book. I didn't love them. They have character flaws, but everyone has flaws. None of us are perfect, but I really enjoyed this book. It is like over 400 pages, but highly recommend reading this. You get to learn so much about deaf culture in like a fictional way, and it just really loved the story. It was so wholesome, and highly recommend True Biz. I would give this an 8 out of 10 for sure. Next up is, I got 3 books that I read by Taylor Jenkins Reid's this month. The first was Malibu Rising. So this big pop star, or I'm not so sure. Anyways, he became a musician. This is happening like in the 1980s. Like I think he was popular during the 1960s, and so the guy, I can't remember his name, Riviera, I think is their last name. Riva is their last name. So Mr. Riva became like a popular musician, and he ended up like abandoning his family, and his kids ended up just staying together and ended up becoming, you know, a good family unit. The older sister ended up raising her younger kids, her younger siblings, and so this book is about, you know, the family relationship between all of them, but it all happens in one day. It happens during the Riva family party that they have yearly, and so much happens during this day of like the family learning more about each other and becoming closer and learning about each other's secrets. And it's just amazing, like watching the bond between all of them grow and them finding each other. And the book goes back and forth between present day and back when Riva first met his wife and the mother of these kids, and it goes back and forth between these. The story is so well written, it's so nice, you know. I love seeing the character development of these characters throughout the book and how they like become amazing. It's just, so I love this book that she wrote. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10 for sure. Next one Daisy Jones and the Six. So this book is about this rock star band during the late 1970s. So they become very popular, have some hit songs, and then the band falls apart. So this story is written like an interview with the band, about like what happened to them and why they fell apart, and learning some secrets along the way. I liked it. The style of writing was very different, with it being more like an interview. This is not based off a true story. It is fiction. And it was kind of hard for me. It wasn't hard to follow. It was hard for me like to try and get in that groove of following along with that. This was a book of the year. I liked it, but I liked it. I liked the story. I liked where the story went and learning everyone's different perspective. I did not like how it was written as an interview. I wish it was written as a story, but I think written as an interview was how, it made the book how it is. And I think the author did an amazing job. I just didn't like how it was written. It just wasn't my favorite. But it was a good story, for sure. So I'm not gonna keep this book, but it was amazing. So I would probably give that one a 6 out of 10. This book, probably my top favorite book that I read this month. The Seven Husbands and Evelyn Hugo. I think I read this book in one day. It's about Evelyn Hugo. She wants to give this, she's not a reporter, but she's a writer for newspapers and everything, Monique, and she kind of down on her luck lately with her job and her relationship, and Evelyn Hugo chooses her to write her story, and everyone's always interested what Evelyn Hugo's story is, and she chooses Monique to publish it. So this is just about Monique and Evelyn Hugo getting together and Evelyn Hugo telling her story. Her story is freaking amazing, and there's some twists in there. Like, I kind of like started seeing it coming, but when it hit, I was like, oh my gosh. And I want to read this book again. Like, I would sit down today and read it if I wasn't reading another book. Just go read it and you'll see for yourself. You will love it, no doubt. So those are all the books I read during the month of May. Let me know what books you've read during that month. And if you suggest any books for me, I would love suggestions. I am trying to, expand my horizon with different genres. So leave me some suggestions down below. Love to hear what you're reading. That is it for this video, guys. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see everyone really soon in the next video.